The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you a songwriter? Are you looking to turn your songwriting passion into a full-time gig? Whether you are just at the start of your songwriting journey or a seasoned industry professional, this show is made for you. Welcome to The Songwriter Show, bringing together songwriting news, interviews, and community. Now, welcome your host, Sarantos.
Hello, everyone. I welcome you back as I do every Tuesday night, and I thank you for tuning in to The Songwriter Show. I'm your host, Sarantos, a solo music artist who's been writing lyrics for as long as I can remember. Words are the key, and they're so important to me, and that's why I'm so thrilled to host this show for you every Tuesday night. I strongly believe that every song is a story. The Songwriter Show is broadcast live on number one ranked W4CY Radio and has listeners in all 206 countries in the world and every single state in America. The station is licensed with ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and Sound Exchange and has many partnerships throughout the music industry, including iHeartRadio and exposure to over 300 million listeners. Tonight's first guest is Mark Oblinger. Hailing from Boulder, Colorado, Mark adds new flavor to the indie rock scene. At the tender age of 14, Mark picked up the guitar that would set him on his musical path. After performing with highly successful national touring acts, such as Puri, Prayer League, and Firefall, Mark finally takes his well-deserved place at center stage with his debut solo album, High Water Line, which is released this summer. Today, Mark is the winner of 5 Emmy Awards for his work on PBS and a Grammy finalist in 2012 for his children's jazzy symphony, Jumpin' Jazz Kids, a swinging jungle tale featuring Al Jarreau and Dee Dee Bridgewater. Welcome to the show, Mark. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, man. It was kind of cool to look through your story. And, why don't you tell us how you got started? What happened when you were a kid that got you down this path?
I think it was similar to a lot of people, getting infected with the feel of what music was when you were 9 or 10. I remember hearing the Beatles, and it just went to a place in my body that said, I have to do this. I mean, it was just resonated so deeply in what I do, how I was going to express myself in the future. So, one thing led to another. Guitars, trying to, getting in bands, bad bands that I was in probably when I was in high school. Yeah. And then, but that's how you learn your craft. And so, and then that graduated to playing more professionally, and then actually getting a shot and doing some touring with some national acts, and then also becoming a sort of a jack of all trades, because if you want to stay in the industry, you just can't do one thing necessarily. So I learned Pro Tools, and I became a studio engineer and a writer for film and some other things too. So it kept me in the game as long as also being a songwriter the whole time too. So I think that's part of the thing, is to vary what you do.
Yeah, you touched on two things that stood out to me. One is the teenage garage band, rock band thing. And I'll tell you, you're lucky, because I tried to convince everybody to do a band, and I didn't have anyone that would really do it with me. So I went through high school not being in a real garage band or rock band. I wanted to. And then the second thing that really struck home is you talked about Pro Tools and the engineering, and I try to engineer and mix and do all these things, but I consider that my biggest weakness, and I think that's such an underrated skill set.
Yeah, I think the part of it too, the two things, I mean, I don't know if you really missed anything by not being in those bad bands in high school. We spent a lot of Saturday afternoons playing, 1 or 2 chord songs forever and ever. But I think, you learned how to begin to communicate with other musicians, and you learn how to begin to listen, because it's really about listening, and reacting to what someone else has played. But then, the thing about Pro Tools is I had some really great mentors along the way, which really helped as far as the ideas of how to do this, the craft, and you learn key things about doing it, and that really helps too. And I think if you're there's a lot of people that are in the business that, and I feel like I'm pretty meticulous about stuff. So that the audio part of it really fed me as far as trying to polish and get things just the way you'd want to hear it. And that was part of my growing up. And I remember putting a tape recorder in front of the TV when I was maybe 11 or 12 and recording stuff off of the TV shows because I wanted to listen to it back and play with it and see if I could change it. So that kind of stuff, fascinated stuff by that.
What instruments do you play?
Mostly, it was always guitar was number one. And then because I was doing studio gigs where I was having to play other things and be sort of the creator of a lot of content, I learned to play enough piano that I can get by. I would never play it necessarily on a live gig, but I can do it in the studio. Same with bass. And by working with some other people recently, I picked up mandolin. And I can play a little bit of, I've got a cigar box guitar that I play slide on. So just, enough little taste of different things so I can kind of fill a sonic spectrum with different kind of ideas and say, hey, what about, ukulele on this song? So we can try it so I know how to play it.
Yeah, wonderful. Do you describe your family as musical at all, or is it just you? Not necessarily my folks a little bit, but my dad's side of the family has a lot of people there are some people that were on Broadway and some other stuff. So there was always that piece in the family about sort of show people and being able to get out there and sing and get on stage. And so that was, even though I was completely just shy as whatever, but that there was at least a path that, oh, here's how you do this. And it was always attractive to me. I just didn't know how to get there. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your fondest musical memory in high school. Is it the garage band thing, or you have another fond memory?
You know what? I'll tell you the most profound memory in high school, because I was just talking about this with somebody, was that we were in a car and we were driving someplace, and I was singing along with some people, and for whatever reason it was, I felt like my voice was just terrible. And it crushed me for a long time, because I really wanted to do this more than anything else. And I started playing gigs in college with some friends, and I would sing harmonies and stuff, but I was just terrified to sing lead because that thing kind of hung with me for a long time. And I finally pushed through it, probably early mid-20s, that was like, oh, I can do this. But when you get those kind of things happen to you at a sort of a formative time, it can affect you greatly. It's like, choir teachers telling kids, oh no, sweetheart, you just mouth the words kind of stuff. And it's, boy, when you want to sing, it's a terrible thing to live with that. Like, maybe I can't do this. So it was good that I figured out a way to get through it.
Wow. I'm listening to you talk and I'm having like acid flashbacks to an experience I had too, where
oh man,
the easiest way to say this is I went on a date. I went to Great America, where you could sing a song, with someone, they record you. And It was the first time I heard, and up until that point, me and my sister would argue about who's going to be in concert downstairs blasting the music.
All right.
And I totally wanted to do this forever. Yeah. And I heard myself on tape, and it crushed me because I was like, wow, my voice sucks. And it literally, it took me forever to get over that. In fact, I've always considered voice my biggest weakness, and I've worked hard at it the last 3 years.
Sure.
And I finally understand melody, and I finally understand, oh, wow, you have to kind of figure out what you want to sing. You don't just go out there and wing it.
Sure.
And, man, it took you a while. It took me my whole life to get over that.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, if you can speak, you can sing.
Yes.
I think kids naturally can sing. And it's almost like you said, someone doesn't encourage you, or you don't take formal training, and you get over that confidence. It's so crushing.
Yes. And I've worked with students before, and that's that explaining that thing is you just need to get up there and try it. And the greatest tool you're going to have is when you fail. When you fail, you get information. Don't take, there's a piece of you that's going to take it personally, but you try not to, but say, now what happened here? What can I do next time that I can push through this next piece? But the thing I know as a performer is I've done this a million times, so I can get on stage and I can go to these certain things and I know they'll work. But when you don't have a lot of experience, you don't have that base to go to, so everything is frightening and scary. And And that's that thing about just, learning your craft when they talk about, inspiration and writing and some other things. But there's the musicianship and craft. If you have your craft together, then you know that you can, I can hit a home run on this note. I'm going to lean in and do this. And it sets the tempo or the tone for the night when you start your songs off.
Yeah, totally. The other thing for aspiring people out there that might be listening, my songwriter, he had a great thing he told me. I've been taking songwriter lessons for about 3 years, and I've learned about everything, melody, scansion, rhythm, just all these things that I had no idea about.
Sure.
And I would routinely, at this point, I can take my dry vocals in Melodyne. I can look at them.
Nice.
And if I know something's in the key of C, I know what all the notes are, and I make sure it's there, and I don't really have to tune stuff anymore, but I'll still get like reverb reviews, and people will say, oh, he's pitchy, oh, he's not. So I talked to him about that, and I said, I don't understand. This is perfectly keyed.
Right.
This is exactly tuned. I've looked at it visually. And he's like, listen, most people don't know what they're talking about when they say, oh, he's off key. They're like, people used to tell me, he goes, I'm not a good singer, but I'd get out there and people have a great voice.
Right.
He goes, they're talking about timing. They're talking about, he goes, the melodies you created. He goes, it has nothing to do. People don't understand it.
Yes.
And it really bothered me because I'd be like, why are they saying I'm off key? I'm on key. I'm on the perfect, I'm looking at the notes of the guitar, the piano. I'm looking at what I'm singing. I'm like, I don't get it. And there's so much more to it than I think people even understand when they think someone's off key.
Yeah, well, there's so much about feel. I mean, there's so many great performances that you've heard on records through the year where the first couple notes are the guy's out or the person misses the front, but they sing it so convincingly and it's so much a part of the fabric of the song that you forgive them. You go, oh my gosh, and I have people that I work with that make pitch feel like it's the size of a basketball. I mean, they can hit it right in the center. And there's other people that really struggle to stay, this fine, exact tuning you're talking about, but they have an overtone series in their voice and it kind of it makes it wider so they can kind of hit anything and it feels good because they know where the tonal center is and they can kind of fudge around that. But it's also their intent when they're singing is so powerful and passionate that it makes up for those other things that are maybe missing as far as, being picture perfect right on pitch.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole other thing to it. Like, I know once I finally got comfortable with my pitches, you got to forget about being robotic, and it's all about emotion.
Yes.
Because, you could have this pitched out thing that looks perfect, but then you're robotic. You're not singing with passion. And that's a whole other, that's like the next step for me that I've been working on. But it's definitely something that, you teach. I mean, there's a million people trying to teach things. And I forever was like, explain this to me, explain melody, explain it. People did not explain it to me.
Oh, sure.
I had to take lessons. I had to look at YouTube videos. I read a million books. And I'm finally, and at the end of the day, you're like, well, why didn't people just say that? That's pretty easy.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah. Well, some people don't understand it either. So it's how you process that stuff.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about what's your favorite 90s jam, if you could pick a song or a band.
Wow. I was really, as I say, I'm from the 70s, 80s and stuff. I was a big Peter Gabriel fan, kind of things like that. But then I loved Nirvana. I loved that stuff that came out of the 90s and the early 90s as far as the edge of the grunge stuff. It was great. And Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden, I mean, all those bands were awesome. So, I mean, I would maybe say Sour Girls by Stone Temple Pilots might be my favorite song from that time. Or Teen Spirit or something like that. But I just love that edgy stuff. It was great.
Okay.
But there's also, in saying that, I can think of a million other songs like, oh, wait a minute, why don't we go this way or that way? But when you said it, I just got this, I immediately went to that emerging scene up in Seattle where it was just exploded up there. It was kind of cool.
Sure.
Yeah.
What was your first job?
My first job, I was washing dishes at a retirement home in high school for making $1.35 an hour, minimum wage at the time. I know.
You like it?
It was, like any job, it taught you the pros and cons of, this is do I want to do this for the rest of my life kind of thing. So I always look at those as, it's just information. It's not good or bad. It's like, well, what does this tell me? What tells me this? And I don't necessarily want to do that job. I mean, it was a good stepping stone because it got money and it put money or gas in my car and that kind of thing, and it bought me. I could get to go to McDonald's, but beyond that, it was just a place to begin to show up and you had to show up every day. So that was another part of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about the coolest trip you've ever been on, for music or without music?
The coolest trip. That's a good question. My dad was in the Army, so we got to travel when I was in high school, and we got to go to London, and I was in London in '69, just when at the peak of the music scene exploding, and Hendrix was there and on TV, and so it was probably that trip because it was so magical because you could tell. I had a music thing happening, but inside of me, but you could tell that something was going on in the world at that time, and especially in London. And just walking the streets, it was special. It was really cool.
So we got a call from one of the listeners. Do people need voice lessons? What do you think about that?
Do they need them?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing is I think people don't understand is a lot of the people, the people that you hear, the Stevie Wonders, these great singers, they usually have a voice coach that works with them because when you're singing a lot, you fall into bad habits. I picked up one a little bit not too long ago when I was working on my record when I was singing more in the back of my throat to get a little bit more of a drag on my voice just to get a little gruffer. And I was doing that not even thinking about it. So I had to work on my placement to get it forward again. So I think singing lessons with a good coach is always a good idea just because it gets your mechanics to work because it's really a physical activity. So you want to be able to use your body to get that to happen.
Absolutely. And I think you're right because you do fall into bad habits.
Yes.
And you can probably relate to this. I try, like anybody, I try interesting things musically, lyrically, vocally. And there are things that I'm like, that is the coolest thing I've ever. Yeah. I have a song coming out actually next month called Drugs. Nice. And it's about famous rock stars that have died from drug overdoses. Oh, wow. And at one point I'm like, drugs always get the last laugh. And I take it out and I put this sarcastic, like sinister, evil laugh there. And I was like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever, the way it comes in. Yeah. People hated it on the reverb thing. Like there were like 6 comments and I was like, but I really like this. Usually I'm like swayed and I listen to that, but I'm like, I'm going to keep it. I just put the volume down a little bit.
Right.
I was like, how do you know unless you have a label and you have like a huge A&R team?
Right.
But then every song's going to sound like Ariana Grande and Drake and Taylor Swift, which I love what they're doing. But
right. It's not
me,
you.
If we're trying to experiment and we're trying to, you want your voice to sound a little grungy on one thing, you definitely sometimes can't get out of it unless you have someone listening to you saying, hey, stop doing that or get back to your tonal center.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's that. But that whole thing you just went through, as far as making those choices artistically, that's what this is all about. I mean, you make these choices, and you have to. That's the thing. You have to stand by them. If you really believe that it's the right thing to do, you got to go with it. I mean, and be, as long as I think you do it well, and your craft is done well on the record or the song, and you sing it well, and the laugh is put in the right place and stuff. That's the kind of thing you go to bat for and say, you might not like it. And this, here's the thing, and this is the thing I just came to in this last year that really helped me get this record out for me, was the fact that I've always wanted everyone to like everything I do, everything. And I finally got to the point where I went, as long as I do it well and I'm happy with it, there's going to be people that don't like what I'm doing. And once I accepted that, it's totally fine because I know that there'll be a tribe of people, and I'm calling it this idea of tribe or group that will like what I do. Because there's all kind of artists that I respect a lot, but I don't necessarily like their music, but I get what they're doing. And I have to treat myself the same way, is that I'm doing a good job. My songs are good, but maybe this person over here doesn't like it, but the person right next to him might think it's fine or really like it a lot. So it's accepting that thing that you're an artist, and people as an artist, there's no one that likes everything that everyone does. So you have to sort of stand your ground and say, yeah, this is who I am, and be comfortable with that. And it took me forever to get to that point.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. All right, we got another question here. What do people need to know to do music, and where can they learn it? It's kind of an open-ended question there. How would you answer that?
I think, one of the things at least when I was teaching a lot, was talking to students, is I'm a big proponent of two things as far as, well, one of them is to pick an instrument that you like, that you feel like you have an affinity for. And it's good to be able to accompany yourself, because I know people that don't, and they're just singers, and I think that they would do better as far as being able to sit down and just immediately get into the flow of something and be able to play something and sing. So learn, pick up a guitar, piano, whatever you're playing, and learn at least to be able to play basic chords on it. And then learn songs that are out there. I mean, I've learned so many devices as a songwriter by being able to, here's how they played this song, and when they went to this certain change, that's how they do that. So 2 years later, I'm writing a song and I'm going, how do I get here? Someone in this tune did this, and they went to this major chord to the minor chord, and it showed me how to do it. So learn other people's songs so you can put that into your craft. I think that's a big part of it. So you have a library of devices and ways people write, because it's not rocket. I mean, it is rocket science to have that beautiful gem of an idea, but a lot of it is nuts and bolts that you can learn. I mean, blues are certain progressions all the time, and there's certain other forms that are the same way. So I think there's a part of the craft you have to be able to pick up in some way to be a functioning musician and be able to express yourself.
Yeah, that's great, Mark. All right. Tell us about this song we're going to listen to in about 30 seconds here. What do you want us to know about it?
It's interesting because it almost didn't make the record. It was a couple songs, and this thing we're talking about that are on the edges of what you stand up for. I had this idea that I wanted this hip hop type groove with a banjo in it, and it's got mandolin, so it has these bluegrass elements with this other kind of feel. So my producer and I pushed it back and forth and said, let's go with it. So this is what we ended up with. It's a Romeo and Juliet take on Juliet's feelings about, this thing of no regrets, whether she should have done they should have followed down this path, and, how they end up as dying. So, but it was the hip hop feel over top of banjo. So I was like, why not?
Awesome. All right. Yeah. Let's take a listen to it right now, man.
All righty.
All right, here we go.
With my heart until we part, and it's empty, and you find that it's all that's needed. 'Cause one by one, two by two, we're all looking for answers, and it's not ever quite what it seems. No, just a little sleep. Now the story told, days of old, Romeo, you remember as he walked through the garden to grieve. So no regrets, Juliet, where she lay down surrender, as she brought Romeo to his knees. Yeah, time comes again, it's right here, my friend. It's not what you choose, no more what you lose when time comes and takes your second chances away. So I say, no regrets, na na na. I said no regrets, na na na. No regrets, no regrets, Juliet. No regrets, na na na. I said no regrets, na na na. No regrets, no regrets, Juliet. It's just a lover's game with no refrain, nothing's left, no tomorrow, just a kiss, a wicked twist, tenderly. So no regrets, Juliet, when you lay down surrender, the thought that your heart would be free. No, time comes again, it's right here, my friend. It's not what you choose, no more what you like fingers wrapped around my throat. It's getting hard to face its time. And if what you said was true, there was never any choice but you. It's like the beating of this heart.
Wow, Mark, that was really cool, man. That was definitely kind of, I'm trying to think, funky, vibey. That was that was cool. That was definitely different, and I think it's good to be yourself, man.
Oh yeah, well that was really that's why it was kind of the outlier. It was like, really, am I going to do this? I said, yeah, why not? Because it was a lot of the record is fairly poppy, and it tends to be a little Americana, but. Once I put that groove, that electronic groove underneath that, it was like, well, that changed everything. Let's go with it, yeah.
And you did. So, do you do your own arranging? Do you do everything? Do you source out drums? Do you do anything? Do you give anything to anyone else, or do you do everything?
Oh no, for this record, I definitely had people playing most, different. Had live players on a lot of stuff. When I do a lot of other production, I will, when I'm doing things for TV and stuff that we have to blast out, I would play a lot of the things myself. But this was live drums, live bass, guitars, banjo, everything. So it was, it has that feel of having people involved, which is when you get more people in the stirring the pot sometimes like that, it really gives more energy to something. So. Because there's things that those people played that I never would have dreamed of. Like, oh, I would have never thought about going over there. Let's try that. And when you have, really creative people in the room, it's like, well, let's use those ideas. Those are good. That's why you're here. That's why I hired you, because you're brilliant. Let's use it.
Yeah, it's, man, the more I do this, my dream, it's kind of funny because I've kind of over the years learned to do everything myself. But now my dream is, I can't even imagine like going to a professional studio, not doing the vocals in my family room, which has terrible acoustics. And I'm always trying to compensate for everything.
Sure.
Just, vibing, doing different things, and then letting the mixing engineer put it all together, talking back and forth instead of spending hours tweaking things and editing it. Sure. And, I love being, the bedroom producer, the indie guy, whatever, but there's a part of me sometimes that there are people that are infinitely more talented than me on the guitar, on the piano, on the drums, and that's cool, man. You can definitely tell a difference.
Well, and that's the thing too, is I think that, and I feel the same way. I've been doing this for a long time, but I think there's always people that can. It's not about necessarily being the best player in the world. It's about being the best delivery system for your idea. So I was watching, and I just learned this the other day. I was watching this video, and it was a guy was talking about John Mayer's Neon song and how difficult it is to play. But it's one of the reasons it's difficult is because his right hand technique is so weird that how he plays, and he does it really unconventionally, but it works. And I have this one song that I struggle with sometimes, and it's fairly hard to play. And I went, well, gosh, there's my problem. My technique is so bad that it makes it hard, but it also works for me. So it's that idea of, finding this voice through you that I don't play perfectly, but sure, I can play these chords the way it works for me. And my rhythm is special for how that works. I mean, you have to be able to play with people, but you'll bring a certain characteristic to it when you play it that maybe somebody else does. I mean, I've done that before with records where I'll go in to play the part and then the artist comes in and plays it. I'm going, it's flawed. It might be a little flawed, but it's perfectly flawed for them to do that. And that's the character we're looking for. So, that's the thing. That's what we want. We want to hear somebody's, voice coming through their music and making that statement that's individual.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. I like to ask every guest on the show, tell us about a scam that you've fallen for that you want to warn the rest of us about, because I think they're so prevalent in the music industry.
Well, it was interesting. I mean, back in the day, I'm trying to think of a one that happened to me. I mean, there used to be, before you could verify things, people would call and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm this agent or that agent. We'd love you to sign up and do this kind of thing. And so I don't think you see as much of that anymore because it's so easy to Google somebody and find out, that these people aren't for real. I would definitely, I think that's a good question, really. The promotional things, I think, is there's so many people that are out trying to promote people as far as giving them a package deal, a 360 deal as far as an artist to get things done. And I think you have to just check your sources and make sure people are doing what they're committing and doing what they say they can do as far as helping you. Because there's a lot of people that I think are maybe even with best intentions can't get the job done, and so you can pay a lot of money and not really get what the results that you would like. I mean, I'm working with a great team right now, and that but I think that they're and I'm not disparaging anybody in the business either, but I think that's something you have to look out for as far as making sure you have people that are really good for on your team and understand what can help you as an artist get to the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, and who you surround yourself with, I think, is critical too, and that's often misunderstood or not focused on.
Yeah, I mean, it's who you are. I mean, those people are an extension of who you are. So you want to have the same people that have the same character and are doing things right and legit, and because it speaks for you in everything that they do.
Yeah. Do you think when listeners are listening to indie musicians, should they cut them slack and say, well, of course this doesn't sound like Adele because, she did this at Abbey Hall and she had a backup chorus, or do you think they should be as demanding of us as they are of, the professionals?
I think it depends on what you're looking for. I mean, I listen to a lot of what I would consider indie productions, and I generally really like it because for the next EP that I'm going to do, I'm definitely going to cut back my production a lot, and because you want to stay more focused with the heart of the song. So I mean, if it's just drums, guitar, bass, and maybe a keyboard part and a good vocal, think about all the tunes that from the 60s on that really we put our hats on as far as what were the tunes that sort of started this rock and roll thing off, and they were very simple productions. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, but I think you can hear when you have a string section playing. I mean, it makes a difference. But if the heart of the song is missing because that production wasn't taken care of, then it doesn't have as much impact as the indie tune that you just heard where the guy just basically sang into a guy or girl sang into his iPhone and overdubbed a guitar part. And if it's right, it's right. I mean, I remember making 4-track cassette demos of my songs, and because you only had a limited amount of time, tracks to work with, you got it done. And everything that you played was really important because it had to. You couldn't have extra, here's my little shaker track or something. Everything had to be vital.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. What do you think is the most compelling part of your story?
I think it's the compelling part, I think, is the fact that it's interesting. There's two pieces of it. I mean, I got. I don't even really want to talk about that. I was early on in my career, I was doing a lot of partying and stuff. And at some point, somebody pulled me aside and said, if you're going to last in this business, you need to knock that off. And I got it. And so I got cleaned up about 35 years ago. And then the minute I did that, a lot of great things started happening. I got on tour with some national bands, and it was hilarious because I went on tour, and all of a sudden, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was everywhere, but I went, no. It was just like the universe was playing a joke on me, and I would have that giggle and go, that was an old life, and I don't do that anymore. So my life has been great since then. And then the other thing would just be the fact that, like a lot of people, I decided to get off the road and have a family. And I think that was the best decision I've ever made because I have 2 wonderful kids and an incredible wife that's also sings with me and incredibly talented. And she's out on the road with me now doing these gigs. But I, like a lot of people, you put those dreams on hold for a while. And now I'm back out playing again because it really feeds my soul. It's really what I wanted to do. It's what I did the first gig I played when I was 19 in college. I can remember the exact moment, and that's the feeling I have now when I play, and that's what I wanted to get back to. So it's really
very cool.
Yeah.
So we had a couple interesting questions. So let's get Bryce first. Should you make music for your liking or to sell? I think you kind of already answered that, but if you want to answer that again.
I think you got to be happy with what for your liking first as an artist, because you can never determine whether it's going to sell or not. You just can't. I mean, there's no magic ball that says if I do these kind of chords and I do this, it will sell. And if you're not happy with it artistically, then you haven't accomplished anything. So I would do it for the art first, and then see what happens from there.
Okay, now, Angela, I love you. Bless your heart. I love this question because actually, I was going to ask when you started saying your story. I was like, "Wait, what? A rock star, a rock musician that's partying too hard?" So Angela's question is, "Do all musicians do drugs?" And Angela, before he answers, check out the Netflix documentary. I don't remember what it was called. It was about Kurt Cobain and all the young rock stars that died, and that inspired me to write my song "Drugs" for next month. Yeah. But you got to check that Netflix documentary out. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So you want to take that?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think back in the day there was a lot more of it, and I was just talking to one of my friends about this, with the idea that all you had to do is be able to show up for 90 minutes a day. You had to do your set. If you're doing a 90, people do 45, 60, 75s or 90s. And so if you could show up 90 minutes a day, the rest of the day you can be completely out of your mind, stoned, whatever. Back in the day, if you make that choice, and you could pull it off probably. And people did, but they also died doing it. But the thing that happened, I think, earlier, like in the 90s and transitioning into now, you had a lot more younger people coming into the business that were not doing drugs at all, that were really looking at it as a business and really did really well with it and have continued. So that model, I think, is really broken, and especially with a younger generation of players. I mean, I think there's still people still drink, and that's fine. And whatever your recreational drug of choice is, within limits. But there's so many people that show you don't have to do any of that and be really successful and really creative. So that it's not necessary at all.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're winding down here. I don't want to forget to ask, tell us about your website. Where can people buy your music, listen to it? Where are you at?
I'm at markoblinger.com, and you can find that's the website. You can buy the records is called High Water Line, and it's available on Amazon and on iTunes and CD Baby and all the other ones. You can buy it directly from me also. And it's on Spotify. You can stream it there too. So yeah, markoblinger.com, and you can reach me through that too, mark@markoblinger.com, and see all the stuff there.
Perfect. Tell us about the funniest thing that happened to you in the last year.
In the last year?
Yeah.
How about
that you can share in public? If you got if you got a good story, it could be any time, man. That's okay.
Oh gosh, it's not. I'm trying to think. We did so many goofy things. That was the thing back in the years ago when I was touring with Firefall. You would just get bored, and you would do crazy stuff, and we would do all kind of stupid things with food, and you could see how those rock and roll stories happened, because we'd be running around and somebody would take it'd literally be a food fight, but we would try to be tame so we wouldn't make too much of a mess in a restaurant, but it happened at times. And it wasn't that we were necessarily being jerks, but you're on the road, you've got nothing to do, and it goes and it grinds on you, so there would be a slight throwing of food every once in a while, but not too often, and shenanigans, just normal kind of prank, practical joke kind of stuff and things, but nothing I think too harmless, but that kind of stuff. And as I say, it was just to kill the waiting for the next thing to happen. So okay, we have got to wait till 4 to go to do the sound check, and then blah blah blah, and a lot back then too. There wasn't a lot of places where you could go work out, so we would run a lot. I mean, a couple of the guys in the band would exercise, but it was more just to kill boredom. So you did all kind of crazy stuff, and gluing doors shut and things like that.
Yeah. What is the food most commonly thrown?
I think the time I'm thinking of was spaghetti, and I think somebody wore the. I just took, and I think it was actually me. I took a plate of spaghetti and just basically put it on my head, because it was more funny to do that than actually throw it at the time. But and I can't remember that. If one of my bandmates hears this, they're going to die laughing because they can probably remember.
So is that with sauce or without sauce?
Yeah, it was definitely a very red sauce.
That's the important question.
Yeah,
with red sauce?
It was definitely a red sauce. There was, nothing fancy about it either.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead. No,
I can't.
You can't.
I'm remembering other stories that I shouldn't tell.
Got it. What do you think if, sometimes I ask people about their backup plan. What's your backup plan? Not that you're not going to make it because you already have, but what's your backup plan?
Gosh. Well, I mean, and that's I think that's the point. At this point in my career, I've accomplished a lot, and I'm really happy with what's happened. So, if I had to stop, that was the thing. If I wouldn't have been a musician, I would have been a carpenter because I love building things. So I would go out and maybe build some houses or something like that. That would be my backup plan. But anything that, if it wasn't necessarily performing, it would be something else with music or teaching, because I love to teach. I've worked with kids a lot, and that's where that Jumpin' Jazz Kids thing that I did in 2012, that was all about teaching music to children. When my kids were little, we wrote songs because there was a lot of good music out there for kids, and you probably experienced this too. There was a lot of stuff that really wasn't of the quality. Kids are geniuses when they're, especially when they're younger. I think we unteach them a lot. But I would be interested in being a teacher for children. I think again, it was fun.
Yeah, there's something wonderful about. I've had the opportunity to teach a bunch of different things, and kids are like sponges. They soak it up, and you feel like you're changing the world, and making it a better place, and it's such a precious thing.
Oh man, yeah.
Any advice for the struggling musician who wants to quit?
Oh wow, that's just so funny. I've got a note on my desk from one of the singers in a band that my son was in, and I need to text her back about this because she was asking me about exactly this. And what I wanted to tell her, but she was saying, well, should I stop now? She's in her mid-20s. She's a great singer. And what I wanted to tell her was that this is a long journey. If it's in your bones, it's a long journey. You don't have to make it overnight. And there's going to be, it's a roller coaster ride, I think, for most people. That you get it. The great thing about this is you get to reinvent yourself on occasion. So, I mean, you're in a band, it's doing well, and for whatever reason, it runs its course, and you take a step to the left or the right, you regroup, and you go at it again. I mean, you don't have to get it all in one arc. I mean, and if it's in your bones, the way music is for me and a lot of other people, and it sounds like for you too, it's something you continue to pursue. And it's, as I say, it doesn't always come the way it especially doesn't come the way you expect it. Because I mean, that's the great journey about this, is that idea of not judging things, whether to be good information or bad. It's just things. It's just something that happened. Then you get to decide to use that for whatever your benefit is that best suits your musical career. So it's a long journey. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing, I'm trying to think. Ryan Tedder, who has had so many hits, and he obviously gets the industry. One of the things I heard him say, and I think about this every single time because I try things. I'm like, oh, this is the best song I've ever done.
Right.
And it gets rated like 50th percentile or 70th, and you're like, wow, really? Mm-hmm. And he said, he goes, I've stopped trying. He goes, I have no idea how to make a hit song. And this is a guy who obviously has an idea, but he's like, I release things that I think are like the best, and they don't go anywhere.
Right.
So
exactly.
It is such a combination of, some things are sticky, some things are not. Some things have marketing power behind them. Mm-hmm. And I think we all know how much labels spend on marketing and Spotify and YouTube ads. And don't be so hard on yourself. I think what you said before, put out what's true to you.
Yes.
And you know what? Sometimes I'll listen to a song I released 6 years ago, and it moves me. And if it moves me, sometimes that's enough.
That's exactly right. And invariably, it's moving other people too. You might not be hearing from them, but if it's resonating for you like that, there's a really good chance that there's other people that are going, yes, I have those same feelings. That's the thing. And I remember a really great songwriter telling me this one time about the idea of when you're writing a lyric, the thing you're most terrified to say in a song is the most universal thing that everybody wants to hear. The thing you're afraid to say is what is most universal. So that use that. I mean I can't say this in this song. Say that, and everyone else in the room will nod and go, gosh darn it, I wish I would have said that, because it's the truth. It's the truth. Yeah.
All right, man. Our time, unfortunately and sadly, has come to an end. Mm-hmm. So I want to thank you for being on the show. It was an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right. So in closing, I want to thank the audience for tuning in tonight. You guys make my Tuesday night, and I love spending it with you. To any listeners out there who may be artists, if you want to be on the Songwriter Show, please shoot me a message. And I hope everyone's unique story gets heard around the world.
Yep.
My name is Sarantos, and please join me every Tuesday night here to hear other amazing artists share their fascinating behind-the-scenes stories right here at the Songwriter Show. And tonight, I'm going to end the show with one of my older songs from like 4 years ago called Hero Falls. And, the inspiration to this song, essentially, who doesn't love a good movie? One of the biggest joys of my life are movies. Whether it's a chance to watch one, write a screenplay, fantasize about being in one, movies are probably number 2 on my master list of passions, of course, right after music. So when I started releasing instrumentals, thinking about TV cues, I thought it'd be fun to kind of create a classic soundtrack type of song. So that's what this was, inspired by Gladiator and some of my favorite movies. And when I thought about the lyrics, I thought about the epic battle scenes with heroes and villains such as Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Gladiator, and many more. So the song is called Hero Falls. It's created on a rainy night. And of course, I had to include a bunch of twists and double meanings. Is it the hero that's falling in battle? Is he falling in love? So enjoy the many possible interpretations as the climactic ending unfolds vocally and musically. Have a great night, and I'll see you here next Tuesday night. I love you all, and thank you for listening.
Abandons this thirsty, ravaged land. He's weary after a long, effortful day. Takes off his heavy armor. She asks if he feels okay. He stirs her endlessly, fresh hair. She grins then looks playfully where he fancies her devoted eyes and shy smile. She's happy he made it to the end of the day. A long day forgotten with a slip of the tongue. The battle-hardened hero falls in love. Embracing, they seem so at peace. She's tending stitches in happy home. This lucky glowing to some. Forget the anger lurking outside. Maybe this is the last twinkle. Who knows what tomorrow brings? They just enjoy each other's company. Their hearts forget almost A long day forgotten with a slip of a tongue. The battle-hardened hero falls in love. There are soldiers outside, shivering to the bone, with no love's life or soothing eyes tonight. But these two are happily sleeping inside. It's time to wake up now, but he's not wanting to leave. The sheets are where he wants to stay. Together, softly they breathe. Then he whispers as he walks away, my love, thank you for what you do for me. The unyielding stars might call out my name, but tonight we'll make better memories. A meaningful night remembered with a slip of a tongue. The battle-hardened hero falls in love. A long day forgotten with a slip of a tongue. The battle-hardened hero falls. A long day forgotten with a slip of a tongue. This battle-hardened hero might fall, but will always be in love.
Thank you for listening to The Songwriter Show. To keep the momentum going, head over to www.songwritershow.com and join our free music community of artists, songwriters, and producers. That's www.songwritershow.com.